Okay, welcome to the Think Education podcast. I'm Chris Hill, joined as ever by Judith Lemmy. And today, I don't know, today we're going to talk about memory and the impact of learning. Because you and I have had different degrees, we've had different pathways. We've talked in the past about, and written in the past in the book that's just about to come out, we've written about our own experiences in the first foray into international study plus travel, sometimes at the same point,
Yeah.
right? And what that meant, and then what that means for us sort of moving forwards. Because we were talking a little bit before we went on air. That sounds such a weird thing to say, but before we started recording, about teachers we've had in the past and the memories that we have of them. And it's funny because it's something that I've never been really sure how to properly articulate this, but like a university's value is based on its reputation, right? It's based on the credibility it has, which is linked to things like quality assurance and degrees and emeritus professors and research, and the kind of the whole thing. But a lot of it is tied into the values that we've talked about in the past. But a lot of the university's value for the student graduating in the future is based on the past.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're actually then dealing with assigning a future value to a degree. So you join our university today and you get your degree in 3 or 4 or however many years, and we as an institution are saying that value rests on something we've done in the past.
Yeah.
And yet we don't know where we're going to be in the future, and obviously at the moment we don't know how many programs we're going to have closed, or how many new people we've hired, or which new partnerships we've merged with, or what new alliances we may have made that make no sense today but make perfect sense tomorrow. And it's an interesting thing where, like, how as I said, fairly evidently, right, I don't know how to articulate this properly because it's a stream of consciousness, but it's like an institution holding knowledge which is not tied to people, but the people and the knowledge are tied to how the institution is perceived. And then that is kind of a value structure. And it's a very, I find it a really interesting thing that particularly universities are often so closed, and we're now trying to be more open and be more community engaged, and we're now trying to be more forward thinking. But it's that interesting sort of path point way of saying, where does this come from, and what does the memory have, and then what do we associate with that? That's a ramble that makes no sense.
No. I mean, sadly or not, to me, it did make sense. But we've known each other and talked to each other a lot over many years, so that might be why. It is. I was just also then reflecting that I've known institutions, and you look at their mission statements or their strategies that are very proud of being future focused. They've actually got that. And then if you do drill down, as you're saying, to the reasons for that, how they articulate, their place in society, why you should come to them, their value, etc., etc. All of that is based in the past. So, as you say, it's sort of future focused. But in being future focused, in some ways, that should mean that you really have no articulation at all of what you think you're going to do, because we don't know what's going to happen. You need to be probably just ready enough to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's the only way in which you might actually make any form of change that will be evident in your own lifetime. Otherwise, it's that slow creeping, hey, the word's coming up now, evolution, that you don't realize until several million years later what's happened. And it's, yes, if you sometimes think about these things too much, well, you end up like you and I, Chris, having these podcasts and a few people that listen to us. But it is then, I think, something else that I was thinking about with regard to this space. And again, it's always good to think of your own experience, isn't it? And what impacts on you, you know, whether you think you've had a successful or a not successful career, whatever, you know, who are those teachers that you remember? Who are those situations? Where are those degrees? Where are those programs? Where are those things that you've done that really impact on what you've done now and where you feel that's been a real success? And were they determined in any way by metrics or by the things that we seem to be
that's a
obsessed
good
today,
point.
for example, with, you know, so, and again, going back to what you were saying a minute ago, what do we look at now in terms of how institutions, be they universities or colleges or schools or anything out with education, you know, they'll very often be trying to measure things on either what they've just done or the impact on students that have just graduated to show, I suppose, how relevant they are to the now.
Yep.
But actually what they need to be doing, probably this comes even very basically down to, why don't you tell us what your alumni of 50 years are doing now, or your alumni of 20 years ago, however old you are, because that actually is probably more relevant than what's happened, what are your graduate outcomes. Well, you know, and that's that. So I think that in itself is quite, we're so obsessed with trying to evidence impact now that we evidence it, but in a really tightly defined way that I don't think probably has much bearing at all on probably what the individuals who are going through our universities and colleges and schools will do in 20 or 30 years time.
I think that's an excellent point. I've been spending, you know, a fair bit of time recently talking about and thinking about the research ecosystem and research rankings and all that type of stuff as I sort of start my new job. And I've had some very useful conversations with my boss about his view on rankings and research. And it's a very refreshing, you know, perspective, not unique to him, but, you know, it's, you know, the fact that there should be, you know, simple counting citations, simple metrics of this and that. It's not actually enormously relevant, particularly when you think, I saw a post that one of my former bosses, Graham Kendall, who's just started as vice chancellor for MILA in Malaysia, was talking about a while ago about, well, who's actually citing what? And, you know, you may have 10 citations, but where are they? And, you know, what metric are we actually using? And I think, you know, a further point to that problem is, if you look at the global scale of higher education, again, a lot of these metrics are very Western focused, right? They are very specific to established and certain types of institutions. And they are, to an extent, they're a straitjacket that we've put ourselves in, that we're trying to measure up against, when, you know, what I find refreshing is increasingly, you know, the student experience is one of the key factors for recruitment, right? So it's not a case of, well, how many senior professors and how much research money have you brought in? It's like, well, what's my life going to be like as a student at your institution? And how is it going to prepare me for the future? So, you know, that issue about, is it just the name of an institution now guarantees you a job? Well, no. It does a degree by itself guarantee you a job? No. You know, increasingly we're looking at student life experiences and you know, industry experience and all these different skill type of stuff. So I agree with you. I think these metrics are, I mean, they seem to be a necessary evil, and I'm sure there's value in them somewhere. But the value that we place on them, as you said, perhaps is a little misguided, right? You know, it should be that plus, you know, the other stuff, because, you know, increasingly as the job market changes and as universities, we cannot legitimately, with any sense of ethics, say we understand what's going to come and we can prepare you and this degrees. We can't say that anymore. You know, the market's shifting so quickly. If we're saying, you know, well, traditional degrees are no longer as relevant as they used to be, we can't simply say to a student, well, that's okay, come pay for a degree, and, you know, then it's your responsibility to create your own jobs in the future, but we've given you a degree. Well, then what was the value of that if it's not the life experience and the gaining and the socialization, and which in the digital world, I don't think we can underestimate how valuable that is, like that social cohesion and interaction and growth. But yeah, it's an interesting point you make. Where are we going? What are we saying we do? What are we actually doing? I mean, I remember ages ago looking up these, the way the buzzwords were used on university websites, and the fact that if you looked at 100 universities and you could identify 6 to 10 buzzwords, every one used 70% of
Yeah.
them, and then they don't mean anything. We're a truly global, international, transnational entrepreneur. Like, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Like, that's just. I don't
A,
know what
what
that
does that
means.
mean?
Yeah.
And B, sort of, so what?
So
You almost
what? Yeah.
might as well say we're a bit like everybody else at the moment. That's it,
Well,
because that's what
yeah.
everybody's saying.
No,
Or
but we're
somebody hand
truly
me a
innovative.
thesaurus.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're the
yes,
truly innovative university. Yeah, so are they.
yes.
And that one over there.
So if
Yeah,
everybody's innovative, that means nobody is. No.
yeah, yeah. It's
I mean,
yes.
I suppose you can see the challenge that universities have got in that somehow you need to, I suppose, well, we feel that we need to evidence our worth. We need to
Mm,
evidence that what we say is accurate as well. So if we say we're a high quality, you know, institution, what does that mean?
yes.
And so we try and find ways of evidencing that. And as I say, said a moment ago, one way in which we do that is by talking about, and as you've just mentioned there, if you come here, if you get this degree, this will prepare you for doing X in the future. And oh, hey, by the way, if you don't believe us in saying that, look at these metrics of what happened to our students who graduated last year and the year
Yeah,
before and the year
yeah.
before that. But then you get, because then it used to be, didn't it, that you had your outcomes that you measured in terms of, well, what percentage of your students have gone into jobs of this kind of worth? Are they
Yes.
graduate? So have they been employed? What kind of percentage is that? Well, most places it was well in the upper 90s, wasn't it? So people
Yeah.
determined that that wasn't good enough because it was too high. So it's like, right, so that's no good. So now what we need to do is say, not only have you got a job, but is it a job above a certain level? Which, of
Yep.
course, then they put a monetary value on it.
Sure.
Which, well, we can debate that till the cows come home, can't we? In
Yeah.
that, oh, goodness
Yeah.
me, yeah, I've got a job in the city that's much more worthy than going off and doing a volunteering job somewhere else in some part of the other part of the world. But so that aside, so then we did that. And then probably quite rightly, people came back and said, yeah, but what if I do go and I do a different sort of job somewhere, but actually I'm fundamentally making a difference to the health ecosystem in that country. And it's like, oh
Absolutely.
yeah, no, you're all right. You're quite right there. We'll set a bit of the metric for that. And then some other bright spark comes back and says, yeah, but what if actually I don't get a job at all, but I set up my own company? Well, surely that's got to count. No, you're right there. So then you set up a metric for that, don't you? And you've got
Yep.
so many things, therefore, then that after a while, that itself becomes pretty much pointless. But what you do end up having at universities then is a massive ecosystem behind
Yeah.
that sorts out all of these metrics. How many of institutions don't have a huge, great planning department or
Yep.
a huge, great department somewhere that sorts all of these out? Now, this is in no way a criticism of any of those departments. They're fantastic, many of them.
Mm,
But a bit of it is like, yeah, but sort of what's the point?
yeah.
And it's that kind of thing, isn't it? And therefore, then, and that's when we started reflecting on this, didn't we? Before, as you say, we switched the record button. If we think back to the things that really have made a difference to us, or we feel as though they have, or that they've not singularly, but been part of that journey that's made a difference to us, have any of these sorts of measures or metrics, if we went back now and apportioned those to that particular activity or that teacher or that school or that university or that degree or that,
Mm.
would it now be something that would get you a 95 or 100% and a big tick, and you would go up the league tables, and your tariff would go up, the roof, or would it be something that would go the other way?
Mm-hmm.
it's arguable as to the fact that it could be any and all of those things, couldn't it? There could be things that, how many of us are either doing things now or studying things that maybe in the past as well, or even when we were at universities, and that we weren't very good at in the traditional, this is how we measure whether you're very good at this. Did you get an A at A level, or an A star, or an A star star star? Now I don't know what they are, but my day it was A down to E, and then ungraded if you really seriously didn't even turn up. But there might be some things that you did. I mean, when I was at school, you did O levels and things like that. Might be some things that either you didn't even take as an O level, or you did it but you weren't very good at it, that you might be doing now as part of your job, and you might be a world leader in it.
I think that's, I mean, as an observation, it's massive. I think it goes so deep into the way we think about education, and whether we're thinking about education as a transactional activity to get from no degree to job, or whether we're thinking about it as an actual, education. Pratchett, right, said, never let learning get in the way of an education, right? And I mean, looking back, there are things I did, I mean, I did classics as an undergraduate degree, which you could become a classics professor, right? Otherwise, I don't know. It's not like it has a necessary. So
how can you draw that vocational line? From doing classics to
but what? So presumably you could go work in a museum, or you could, there are obviously lots of things you could do, but I didn't do any of them, and yet I retain 20 something years later, I retain that interest in it, and that the way that helped me shape my thinking led into a politics degree, which led into education, which led into thinking about partnerships, which led into et cetera, and yet on paper I'm not employed in anything that's related to that degree, and yet it massively shaped the way I think and moved throughout different stages of my career. And so I think it's an important to be able to fail at things. It's important to be able to do things because you're interested in them, even though they have no obvious direct employable implication. Whereas now, and potentially maybe we are going to go back the other, not fully back, but maybe move back the other way, where we've had a period of traditional degree, you must get this degree, it gives you this job, it's guaranteed, it's support, it's it's kind of a security of approach, and it's a return on the investment, obviously, for the education, which is is not to be overlooked. But now, if it's a case of, well, actually, no degree is going to guarantee you a job. A degree is an opportunity for you to learn, experiment, maybe work, across departments, different ideas, this and this, build ideas, build creativity, be innovative, think about problem-based solutions, et cetera. Maybe then the value of university is like, well, no, just come, and it literally, a university becomes an incubator. It's it's quite literally a think tank. There are people here reading and thinking all the time. Come and think about things, come and exchange ideas, and then try and work out solutions to some of the problems we've got, rather than do A and B gives you C, and as you said, it's in the 90%, and therefore, well done, you've won at the game of education. I don't know.
And it might flip back more to how things, I think, were, or maybe there are places that do this. I know that there were a couple in Australia, certainly when I was looking at some of this many years ago now, and I suppose some of the education in the States might be like this, but where, let's say, for your first couple of years of your degree anyway, you don't specialize, you do lots and lots of different things. And even I know when I did my degree back in the dark ages, okay, there was a speciality there, and then you had a second, you had a first and you had a second, which sort of could be related, but they didn't really have to be. And then for the first year, you could pick anything across the entire institution to do, if you fancied it, and you just decided when you got there, which mustn't, thinking about it now, you're thinking, goodness me, that must have been a bit of a nightmare when it comes to timetabling. But you didn't think, and I'm sure there were times when people said, "Oh, I'd like to do this," and we were probably told, "No, you can't do that. I'm sorry. Think of another one." And you didn't bother. You just thought of another one. You know, it wasn't like, "Oh, goodness me, I'm going to write that in the NSS." Oh, they gave me a choice, and I didn't have that choice. Oh, woe is me. No, and I ended up, although I was doing English, you know, I ended up choosing an area in mathematics because that's what I really liked at school and I was really good at it. And it looked always, I remember even my family going, "What are you doing that for?" I said, "Well, I used to like doing that." And they said I could choose anything. So I had a look through the book and I went there and I thought, "Oh, I quite like to do that." How do you do basic? What's basic? You know, and did it make a huge difference? I don't know really, but it gave me a whole different perspective for that period of time and that year that I was doing something. And it was a pass or fail year. I think you would have had to do something like not turning up to fail.
Okay,
You know,
yeah,
it
but
wasn't one
still,
of those. But it was something where it was a pass or fail. So you did actually have to, you know, but and it's almost like, but now would we think about those kind of things? What would we be concerned about? We would be concerned about timetabling. We
we
would be
would.
concerned about saying students have got all of this choice, and then if you had to say no, you can't do that one because of whatever reason, we'd be really worried that somehow we'd be made to suffer for it.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that we've given
yeah.
people this choice and now they go, "Oh, you gave us this choice and now we don't have this choice." So what you do is you start to reduce and reduce instead of just saying, "You know what, we can say there's lots and lots of choice, but manage expectations."
Yep.
Say, "You know what, guys, but you might not be able to have your first choice. And you're
Yeah,
just going to have to live with that because actually that's life.
yeah.
You might
And you,
really, really want to do things in life
but you can't.
and you can't."
And you know what? You might get to do it, and you might not do it well,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yes.
It's funny. I've just had a flashback memory, and I haven't thought about this, I don't know in how long. I have a very distinct memory of going into a room in university in my first year, and they literally had the timetables on flip charts. And so you were walking around the
Yes.
room going, "Well, this is my, does that one fit?" And that's a Tuesday at 10. Oh, I can do
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
then thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna try that." Now, in my case, the subjects that I picked were all within, I guess, the broad social sciences. But I mean, I was looking at,
That's a shocker, Chris, quite
I know,
frankly. You know, you could
yeah,
have thought outside the box a bit more.
I could very well have done.
Could have
I
done a bit of
did,
physics.
yeah, yeah, that's certainly hypothetically possible. But so my daughter, um, she's in an international school, as kind of almost everybody is in Dubai, right? Because just by nature, our schools are almost all international. Um, and they have this thing that they do at the end of each academic year where they ask for the friends lists, and you get to put down up to three of your classmates that you would like to be with in the next academic year. They don't have to be people who are in your current class. They can be people, obviously, they have to be in your year, but people you've played with on sports teams or on council or in the playground. You could, so you just get to pick. And they very clearly say, these are your picks, but we don't guarantee, we don't, et cetera, et cetera. And they try to guarantee at least one of the three. Um, but they also do take very much into account the kid's preference over the learning environment. So it's like, well, yeah, you might like hanging out with this kid, but actually this isn't really doing your learning any
Yeah.
use. And it means that each year there's some continuity, and then there's some change. And quite often you don't get your three picks. You might get one, right? That's kind of but you don't get that. And when we first heard of this, I mean, I came from a primary school where uh, maybe the entire school was less than my daughter's year, right? I mean, it was the numbers are quite different. So you knew everybody, and you were in the same class, and the class just moved up. So nobody really changed. And I remember reading about this and thinking, "Oh, this is just stupid. Why can't they just have the kids stay the same?" And then I think, my wife is like, "Well, who moved many high schools?" She's like, "Yeah, but this is what life's like. You don't
Yeah.
always get what you want, and you don't always get to be in a comfortable environment. So you make it comfortable." and it's just that case of, the fear of disappointing, or the fear of, it's like, oh, well, it can't be perfect. It's like, look at the world. I mean, I understand why we want to create those bubbles, but we do need to prepare students for the fact that working with people from different areas, different backgrounds, different experiences, like that you don't know, that you're not comfortable with. It's really, really valuable. And that freedom to try something and to be put in a situation where, like we've talked about many times when we travel, you've got no idea what's going on. You
Yeah.
can't read anything, you can't talk to anybody. Get on with it, right? It's I mean, we can say that now
you can
looking
do that in
back.
a safe space, can't you?
And you
You
can
know,
do it
your
in a
daughter
safe
can do it in
space.
a safe space with regard to the schools. Students can do it in a safe space when they come to the
Yep.
university. I mean, on the one hand, then you can see where, particularly if it's a vocational job, or and I'm thinking if you're going to be a doctor or something like that, you do need to, you don't want to make loads of mistakes there. There are sort of different ethical issues going on, but wouldn't it be great if we could just say that, okay, as part of your study, choose anything, do anything, and if you fail, that's fine. In fact, that's probably better. We've had this discussion before as well, haven't we? The learning that very often takes place in the things that you've failed in can
Absolutely.
be significantly more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
those where you've done brilliantly, or you've sort of done all right. Because if you've sort of done all right, it just fades into the background, doesn't it? I think I've said this to you before. I've told many students about this too, because also when students talk to you, when you're older too, they always presume that you've got to where you've got to through, just through like walking down a path that's, there's like little dancing music in the background,
Yeah.
and there are daisies, and it's all very wonderful. And particularly when they start to go to get interviewed for jobs, I talk about one of the jobs that I was interviewed for, a few decades ago now. That was appalling. I don't think I could have done worse if I tried. I just about managed to not cry till I was in my friend's car at the end of it. Because, and do I remember it like it's yesterday?
Yep.
Oh, Disney. For quite a while, I said, right, well, I'm never going back there again. Did I learn from it? Boy, did I learn from it. Oh,
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
And the next time I went for an interview, I didn't so much knock it out the park as out the state, out the country.
Yeah.
It was just, you know, and because that hadn't happened to me before. I hadn't had that area of learning before.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and I, and so, all right, would I say that that's a great thing for people to do? At the time, probably I might have challenged it if the person in said car had turned around to me and gone, however, this is a really good learning experience. I might have thumped him in the head. But of course it was,
It was. Yeah.
and it probably was less of a safe space than, particularly if I'd really wanted that job, which I did, of course, at the time. Less of a safe space than at universities. But if we can try and create an environment where you can fail at things, where you can, or oh gosh, the word fail in itself is an interesting one, isn't it? Almost it's like it's a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's
It's not.
just what it is. It's just what it is, But that's what happens in life. And what just happens is you're expecting to do a certain thing. You think something's going to happen, and it doesn't. Something else happens,
Yeah.
and it simply sends you down a
A different way.
different path.
Yep.
And
Yep.
would the other path have been better or worse? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? You
Yeah.
simply don't know.
Yeah.
But what it means is you're continuing going down the path that you happen now to be on, and that's fine.
Yeah. And it brings back to actually what you were saying before, which is if we never allow kids to fail, and we just, everybody has to be perfect, and etc., and that's how we measure it. That's the same as we get back to the seven buzzwords. Then there's no anything. If
Yeah.
everybody's got 100% all the time because nobody's ever failed, and it's like, well, then how are we judging the value of anything? I mean, because if we all, it's like being it's not like this at all, but it just reminds me of being in an academic meeting when everybody has to use their titles, which
Yes.
culturally in some cases is very, very important, and culturally in others makes no sense. Be like, we're all the same. Like
Yeah.
they must cancel each other out at some point,
Yeah.
right?
At a certain point, if we've all got this, could we
yeah,
just not remove that?
yeah, just start.
It's a bit of airtime we're wasting. I think as well, something else, and going back to what we were talking about in terms of metrics and measures and things, and maybe thinking about, you know, when we had an opportunity to have choices at school or university, and if we didn't get them, I suppose the one of the differences is now is not only are students asked a lot more about how they felt about things, was it good, was it bad, how do you measure it yourself, but they can do things much more swiftly. So if, for example, I didn't get what I wanted to do as my, whatever it was even called, and it wasn't even elective, but the what you might fancy doing in the first year of university, well, what was I going to do about it? Write a letter to the Guardian, you know, because there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no NSS, there was nothing where I could complain. There was no, I mean, don't get me wrong, yes, there were complaints procedures. If something major happened, you went to your head of department or somebody somewhere and said, oh, this has happened. But there wasn't that immediate sort of, oh, I didn't get what I want, so I'm going, you know, into the academic, you know, equivalent of having a bit of a strop.
But nor was the expectation that you should expect to get what you want.
No, exactly. And it's almost, and now, and if there had been that, would I, however, have had all of the choices that I had, because the people who would have felt like complaining about, were I of that ilk, would have been so worried about that wouldn't have given me my choices. And I think that is what happens now as well, is that institutions are so worried that somebody's going to complain that they didn't have the choice of studying this particular program, or that they're going to have their class on a Tuesday at 4 o'clock instead of a Thursday at 10 o'clock, or, you know, which is a much more sociable time for them, you know. So I tell you what, we're only going to give you 3 choices, because then we know we can manage that. We've got it all mapped out beforehand and everything's fine, and you're not going to worry about it and complain about it. And that, I think, also, again, goes back to the point of that doesn't happen in life. Actually, life probably is full of infinite choices. It's up to you as to which ones you take. The more options you give yourself, the more chance that either you will do something maybe you didn't want to do, or you don't like, or you weren't very good at, whatever that means. But of course, it means that you might get the opportunity to do things that you would never even have thought of before. And hey, you know, 20 years ago, you find yourself down a path that if you'd asked yourself this 20 years before, you'd have gone, where's that? I don't even know where that path is.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And that's evolution of society, right? We've changed. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But which universities are ever going to be brave enough to say, you know what, we're going to now start to put in infinite choice of things. You maybe aren't going to like it. You're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do. Yes, you'll complain about it. But you know what? There's a life out there, and ultimately it's going to do you better. And now that would be innovative. That would be a bit different. Now, would the, coming back to Earth with a bump, you know, certainly in England, would the student loan company provide loans to support that? Well, unlikely, as they're not even doing that for accelerated degrees, which they wanted people to develop. So you get wonderfully innovative degrees, like the one at the University of Derby with Rolls-Royce, you know, arguably, not a bad company. And all of these kind of things that, you know, and now that kind of degree, unlikely to even get funded, you know. So we don't really do the best across the piece, not only in our own institutions, but at a government level, lots of different levels of trying to, whatever these buzzwords are, for some of them that everybody uses, we tend not to do the best at supporting people being able to do that anyway, do we?
No, we don't.
So I think that's probably sorted that out, Chris. That's sorted out past, present, future. Universities now looking towards the past, looking towards the future focused, all that measurement.
Yeah, employability,
I
student
think
experience,
if people did
engagement.
that, everything would just be fine.
Yeah. Okay. So
one of our more
tackle,
robust discussions, I think.
We'll tackle
today.
the
We've given
global.
quite a few answers there to people. They've got no excuse now.
Quite right. Yeah. There's no flaws in our argument. There's no gaps. All detail is perfectly aligned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We'll let other people start, and then we'll follow if it works. Right.
Uh-huh. In that innovative, sheep-like way.
Yeah. Quite right. Yes. Innovative like sheep. Perfect.
He's gone. That was good. Innovative like sheep, and off you went.
And off you went. Yes.
That has got to be the title